Welcome to episode 76 of the Brew Crew Scoop. It's old news now, but the Dodgers have won the World Series. Um, Back-to-back champions for the Dodgers on the field. It was it's a fun group of players. That's about the best I can say about them. I like some of their players, but I've never seen a bigger group of, I think, sore losers between the fan base on Twitter. Twitter's not real fans necessarily, but sore winners from their publicity tour after, and it's been kind of odd. So, I love me some Shohei, um, but it felt like the wrong ending in that game seven. I will say the World Series was amazing. Um, I don't know who the better team truly was. I know that was a debate. Doesn't really matter. The Dodgers won. And on top of that, like the Dodgers, they got the job done. But it felt like the correct story for baseball was for the Blue Jays to take care of business in that game seven, and it almost felt like 95% of baseball fans left feeling a little disappointed. So, um, all that to say, a good 7 game World Series or an amazing 7 game World Series is good for baseball. We can debate the rest as we go, but anyways, as we all know, the Dodgers won the World Series, and as we all know, we're 1 year away from CBA negotiations. So we're gonna talk mostly Brewers in this episode. Talk about our recap of the full season and then the outlook on the off season, but definitely want to touch on first that World Series situation. So, congrats to the Dodgers.
Yeah,
Boo.
good for them, man. Whatever. Um, I agree with you. Obviously, that every at least everybody from Milwaukee, I think, obviously they took us out. It is cool to say like, we lost to the champion like almost every other playoff run, but there was something about that Toronto team and then just like the super villainness of the Los Angeles Dodgers that it was like, wow, if Toronto could win and watching like a whole country get behind a team,
Hmm.
basically two whole countries get behind a team.
Hmm.
It was pretty damn cool, but obviously it didn't shake out in the end. But it was a really fun series, fun playoff like run for everybody, I think. Obviously it sucked in the NLCS, but the 4 rounds, like they were all electric. I except for ours, which I choose to forget, but I think this
Right.
was one
Shohei
of the
made it
most,
electric. Shohei made it electric in the
Yeah.
last game.
Honestly,
which I
I don't
didn't
think
watch. So
I don't think you could have convinced me that an opposing player against the Brewers would have been electric in the playoffs, but that game was actually, unfortunately.
yeah, I'm too much of like it'll ruin my life if I would have watched that game. So I watched obviously How to Train Your Dragon live action, and that was pretty good.
If it was game seven, it would have broke me, but the fact we were already down 3-0.
Yeah, we were down 3-0. I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go for an hour drive and then watch the movie. And then I just every time I checked my phone, it was Shohei Homer, Shohei Homer, Shohei Homer, Shohei strikes out the side. So that was interesting. But to cap, good for the Blue Jays. Took them to 7. Nobody thought it could be done. Um, Obviously, they didn't get the job done, but it was fun for them. Fuck the Dodgers.
Yeah. Shout out Dalton Varsho, little UWM representing. Yeah, between game 6 and 7, it was definitely there for the Blue Jays taking, and I was definitely rooting for the Blue Jays. I think I knew I was going to be rooting for them going in, but often in sports, I think when you're actually watching the event, you're always rooting for someone. Like when Marquette plays Wisconsin in basketball, some people, Scoop obviously roots just Badgers. I'm a fan of both. I might not disclose who I root for, but there's probably part of me deep down inside that roots one way or the other. But this one, like both you guys said, most people definitely were rooting Blue Jays. And yeah, I think like you said, it was good for baseball that the series went 7. I also think like financially for the MLB, the fact that it was Japan versus Canada playing America's pastime made it just good financially for the future of the game in that sense, a viewership sense, not necessarily lockout sense, but um, yeah, big one there. And then I think the one other thing that's kind of funny, and we'll touch on um, the rich and the poor of the MLB again in this discussion today, I think, but just the fact that some people were painting it as like a little underdog scenario with the Blue Jays and they're like still a top whatever 5 payroll is hilarious. And the fact that that underdog still couldn't get it done also maybe paints the picture that people always said. But I'll keep it brief. I don't need to talk anymore about that World Series. It happened. It was fun to watch, and it's long gone.
Yep, certainly fun to watch. Undoubtedly one of the best, if not the best, of my lifetime, I think. And I do want to give a shout out to Yamamoto. He was no question a great pitcher, ace caliber, but he really had uh, a great showing, and you can't argue that that many pitchers are better than him in baseball. That man just pounds the strike zone even without rest. Last thing I want to say is I do want to clarify too.
I was gonna say, sorry, Yamamoto and Roki, very different mindsets, apparently. I
Yeah.
just want to point that out.
hmm but the last thing I want to say is I don't necessarily think the Dodgers are bad for baseball. I think that's been the argument. Are the Dodgers bad or is it the poor teams? The Dodgers aren't bad for baseball. I think the current structure where teams can, I don't have the answer, but the current structure where some teams can spend 8 times the amount as other teams legally, that's what's bad for baseball. The Dodgers themselves are not bad for baseball, as much as I don't like them.
What
So,
if players on the poor teams start working with like mobs and stuff, and then just put small wagers on kind of irrelevant pitches in the middle of games that no one will ever notice, and that's how those players can supplement their income.
yeah, Clase, one of the greatest arm talents probably in the history of baseball, and the fact that he could throw 103-mile-an-hour cutters, decides to throw his career over first PEDs, which, you know, tough, but you get it. But then that, we don't need to dive into it. I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you know what we're talking about, but that was crazy. But I don't know. Do you guys want to talk about a potential lockout? I think we kind of know the stakes here.
Nah, I don't think we have anything to add, honestly. I think it's a wait and see, and just I'm curious to see how teams do or don't factor it into off seasons.
Good news out of Milwaukee. Not really a surprise. Well deserved. Pat Murphy, back-to-back manager of the year. Um, you always wonder how much a manager means truly in baseball. We got the nerds in the front office pushing some of the buttons. But I think that what we've learned in this transition from Council to Murphy is that maybe just being a guy's guy and being saying the right things at the right times and having the right amount of confidence and not being cocky and just finding that balance every day. We only see snippets of it, but it seems like that means something, especially to a young team. So shout out to Pat Murphy.
And the
Definitely
fan
happy to have
base,
him in Milwaukee.
young team and the fan base. I think a lot of people like there's some team like I don't know. People like Craig because he was from here, but no one was like passionate about Craig Council, even though he was a hometown guy. People love Murph.
Personally, I was passionate about Craig. Personally, I genuinely was. I was like, you know what, I love this team because of what we believe in, and we believed in him, and he
Yeah.
was one of us. I don't know, but
He
maybe
is
that
We're
was
all
pretty
just
born to
me.
be
he
Brewers.
is
Yeah,
pretty
but
tied into the community between like his ties to the Lakeshore Chinooks and stuff like that. So, I mean, I still like him for that. I don't know about you.
yeah, no, he was a host family for the Lakeshore Chinooks. He did a lot of stuff, you know. But he was Harrison Bader's host family, but whatever, doesn't matter.
All right, transactions up to this point. Um, Not too much notable, I don't think. Pretty much all the options that we expected to go the ways they were going to have happened. Um, Quintana's out, Hoskins is out. Not surprising, kind of a bummer. Hoskins' time in Milwaukee. All seems like an all-time good dude though, so wish him the best for sure. Don't know if there's anything else you want to touch on, but obviously the biggest news is that um, we paid Woody's buyout, which was expected, but now we issued him the qualifying offer. So he's got a couple more days here to decide if we either get a draft pick and he's going to test free agency, or if we're going to have him back at 22 mil. So that's a big number for a guy who's been kind of injury prone recently, but obviously we all know what he means to this franchise, and he's a great pitcher when he's on the mound, even with that diminished velocity.
Yeah, I think it's
Uh,
a big number. Sorry, I was just gonna say I think it's a big number to the Brewers maybe, but to the market, it's not really. Whether the market doesn't want to take the risk with his injury and stuff, that's fine. But we obviously have the best info out of anyone on the market on the injury, and we're willing to put the money down. Um, so I think at least again to the market for a pitcher of that caliber lately, he is worth it. And if he were to go, I think our org might value that draft pick more than some other orgs too. So I think it's worth the money probably. Thus, we picked it up. So that's what I have to say. And obviously, I'd love to see him back or see him go if it's a better opportunity for him. But I don't think you'll find a Brewers fan who doesn't like Brandon Woodruff.
Yeah, and to be clear, like my buddy who I have to explain the qualifying offer to, just because he doesn't accept the qualifying offer doesn't mean that he won't sign a different deal with the Brewers down the road. Like he could not accept it and still come back. It's not a here's this. If he doesn't accept it, he's 100% gone. The Brewers just get now would get a draft pick if he were to sign elsewhere. So that's the nice thing about it. He doesn't have to accept that right now, but it does go away, and then he can sign a different deal with everybody else or the Brewers. Um, but yeah, I love Woody. Um, I think that if we got him back at that number, I know we talked about the buyout and stuff, but I think that would still be a valuable number, especially with how many young arms we have. You can't rely on Chad Patrick to come out in his second year and dominate kind of like how he did. You know, I just he's Woody is proven he may not be the most reliant guy when it comes to down the stretch, but he's probably a top two, three, four regular season pitcher in Brewers history. So I would, if you ask me, am I okay with him accepting the qualifying offer? Hell yeah, I have no problem with that.
Kind of ties in here. I guess I should just say real quick. These are obvious. Don't even really need to be mentioned. But Freddie, we exercised our last year the club option. We can talk about that in a minute. But Jansen was declined. Those were the other two I had listed. But the curious thing about Woodruff is I did a little bit of a salary breakdown, and it's kind of hard to put together the exact number that we're at. But after the buyouts, apparently buyouts are tied into last year. So last year we actually did have the highest number, technically, I guess, by Spotrack's numbers, just barely at 138 million when you account for everything that happened. Currently, without Woody, we're already at 100 million with the ARB projections, which includes the buyout on Contreras and his ARB projection won't change too much, but he'll be back obviously.
Sorry, did you
Um,
say with or without Woody?
that is without.
Without the
So if Woody
okay.
opts in, Spotrac has our current team, assuming we pick up all the ARB guys, which I don't think there's really many guys obvious that we wouldn't this year. Um, if their projections are right, we probably have some guys settle slightly under. It would be about 122 million we're at. We haven't seen an opening day payroll be much higher, if at all higher. There's been some years where we've acquired guys mid-season, and then at the end of the year, the buyouts, we've gone over that. But if Woody opts in, um, there's not much more flexibility normally, and normally I feel like there have been a couple times where Mark will make a little splash after a playoff quote unquote run or a good year. But with the pending lockout, I don't know that I see it for a poor team. We saw the roster that was rolled out during COVID. So it makes you wonder if Woody opts in, do they exercise Freddy Peralta? When I say exercise, do they shop Freddy Peralta in a trade deal? It feels like a guy you keep around for 8 million. Obviously, his trade value is super high, but do they give him the Willy Adames treatment, keep him around because he's obviously so important to this team and this clubhouse? But yeah, they wouldn't be expected to do a lot, and they would still kind of have a little bit of a need in the infield. Um, I love Caleb Durbin, Rookie of the Year finalist, but him and Ortiz on the left side, uh, you would like, I think in a perfect world, not to ramble here, but in a perfect world, to move Terang over to short, move Durbin to second, and get a legit third baseman, honestly, unless Joey Ortiz can really figure something out.
Yeah, I would agree. I guess if that's us flowing in, is that us flowing into the Freddy talk?
Yeah, yeah. Unless you
Yeah.
guys have anything else to say about the infield or the spending in general, yeah, talk about the
Yeah,
Freddie
I don't
side.
know the exact, you looked at the numbers a little bit more than me so far of what our spending looks like. But yeah, we're not exactly known as the largest spenders. We're known for our efficiency with our spending. But as far as the Freddy talk goes, I think whether we Woodruff ends up staying with us or not next year probably has a little bit to play into our willingness to deal Freddy. But as a fan base, we have obviously witnessed that the Brewers will not say no to a deal that they think makes them better in the long run, generally. You saw it with Corbin Burns. You saw it mid-season with Josh Hader. A little bit different, but not really. Um, and I mean, that is a lot of value to capitalize on. And while Dodgers fans don't understand why we would do that and think it's just because we don't want to pay his $8 million salary, because I think they might actually be that dumb in some cases, it's because we're capitalizing on the value while we control the player. Um, for the record, to the people saying that the Brewers have a problem with baseball because um, they're directing the argument like we're not willing to pay the 8 mil. No, we understand that he's actually extra valuable on the 8 mil, so we're trying to capitalize on it. But anyways, um, I don't think it's one or the other two. I don't think it's like if Woody stays, Freddie's gone, but it probably just makes us a little more likely because we have another veteran arm there. We have then obviously a lot more money invested in our rotation, and so on. But I'm not currently for or against it either way. I think anyone that says no way trading him, it's dumb. Like you always listen to the deal. You never know what you're going to be offered. Like we once got Contreras for minor league outfielder, as it turns out. So you never say no before you know what the deal is. But if that deal is made, then obviously at that time let's evaluate. But I mean, you always got to keep your ears open. That's kind of how we stay successful.
Yeah, feel like we talked about this at the in like the middle of the year, and thing was like, yeah, okay, get rid of them if it means you're going to get a solid return and it helps us in the future. But I don't want it to be like, oh yeah, we're trading them and then we're taking back money almost just as we did with the Devin Williams deal. Like, if we're going to get rid of them at this point, I need like a high price prospect, not somebody who can be a replacement
Whoa,
and
you're
then
talking
a
shit about a
fringe.
top three rookie of the year player?
I'm talking shit
You
about
got to
Nestor
trust the process,
Cortez.
pal. Yeah, well, guess what else we got, buddy?
You didn't know that at the time. He was like their 25th ranked
It wasn't
prospect.
my job to know it. It's the front office job to know it.
I know. I'm just saying. I don't want Nestor Cortez.
I don't want top three rookie of the. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't want that same return for Freddie either.
Exactly. I mean, from a fan's perspective, it would suck.
Yep.
I think I was okay with it for Devin Williams because of how, the season ended and I just wanted him gone. But, I think if we were going to get rid of him, it would have to be something where I'm like, it was almost like the Mason Miller trade, how they got back that like 17-year-old
Reese.
year old.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's got like four names.
I don't think we're getting that back, but we
But yeah,
have to
if
get something.
somebody's dumb
Yep.
enough to pay that, I would be like, all right, whatever. But then you go into the year. I mean, I'll get into this later in my pitcher of the year, but like the Brewers had so much depth on the pitching side until they didn't. So it's almost like, why would you trade your most durable guy throughout the year who
Yeah,
did stay healthy, has stayed healthy, been on the IL for what, one time in the last 6 years or something?
Yeah.
To me, it would be silly, but I can understand why they would do it.
And as a pure like fan thinking, like if I'm not as like I don't know, I like the numbers behind the stuff. I like the optimization, whatever, because I'm a nerd. If I'm just a fan, I would hate to see Freddie Peralta traded. What he's been to our team, he's always a positive, like positive energy. He's awesome. So I definitely like pure fan brain. You don't want to see a guy like that walk out the door. But I guess the other thing, and I think we have more time before we dive into what the free agency pool looks like and to what Scoop was saying, how to supplement an MLB ready left side of the infield, um, or whatever, short stop or third base or both, like we were saying. I don't think that's on the free agent market, and I also don't think we're going to pay what it would take to get the few pieces that might actually be positive there. And yes, we have a lot of stuff to trade, but the most obvious thing other than prospects, which we have a lot of prospects that we could trade, but could be Freddie. So if that's the way we supplement a shortstop or a third baseman, um, it might be worth it too. But just
I
saying.
agree with you. Just for the record on the fan thing, I love like when small market teams can keep a guy for a certain period of time. He's what, the second or third longest tenured Brewer between him and Woody, and I mean, it would just suck to see him go. Especially when he's on such a friendly deal. It's not like Devin Williams was set to make 14 million in ARB, and it just made so much sense to trade him. It's not that way with Freddie, in my opinion.
Ian, to your point, like we had a lot of pitching till we didn't. Like we had arms, but you're right. It didn't feel like we did not have the starting pitching to beat a juggernaut in a 7 game series. We just didn't. It obviously part of that was Woody getting hurt, but um, all of a sudden it was like you got Freddy, and then you lose the Freddy game, and it's like, oh man, what do we do here? Like, because like I think I would have trusted Chad to give us starts, but he turned out to be so great in the high leverage swingman role that like that made the obvious sense. So yeah, we didn't have as much starting pitching as you thought. Which in a regular season you can kind of hide that, but as it turns out, when you go into playoff series, you're facing Yamamoto, Glass now, Snell, who
Shohei.
Shohei, like yeah, it's tough to go arm for arm with that. We could talk about how our bullpen's so much better than the Dodgers bullpen. Well, it didn't fucking matter. Like didn't matter what their bullpen looked like. So, um, yeah.
I
All
guess I
right.
have one final piece on
Yeah.
the transactions. I did see a post real quick about minor league free agents.
I was actually just going to talk about that too.
We did lose our favorite guy. Um, the basically was the answer at third base, and stuff just didn't work out. Oliver Dunn is no longer with the organization, so
I
just
will
wanted to
say a
let
lot of
everybody
the
know that.
time, not all the time, but a decent amount of the time, those guys will come back too. It's not necessarily that they're gone. But I think we also technically lost a Spiders athlete, Ernesto Martinez Jr. as well. But I think he's like 26, 27. So if he can go get his somewhere else, I don't blame him. But yeah, there was a couple other guys. I don't know if it was Jaeger or Childers. I think it was Jaeger. He might
I
also have
think
been up. Some of the names of guys we've talked about throughout the time, and obviously some guys that spent some time with Javik.
yeah, quick shout out too for Javik. I can't remember the name of the award, but he won a like minor league voice of the something or other award. Apologies for not knowing the name of it right now, but um I got no doubt in my mind that that guy's gonna get the call of the show someday. He's got a great voice, great dude, knows his
Yeah,
stuff too. Shout
I've
out to
kind
friend
of
of the pod.
since we first talked to him and got to interact with him, and one just see how his love for baseball, but two, um, the level of profession. I mean, obviously everyone in that job is a professional, but he takes that stuff as I don't know. He's as good at his job as I feel like he could be. And I feel like he's not much longer in the Biloxi org, not because they don't want him, but because he's obviously very good at his job. Thus the award you just talked about. So definitely shout out there.
All right, hot hitter of the year. Who you got?
Oh, stop dropping on fire, Ricky Bobby. I'm on fire. He's so hot right now.
I guess I can go first for this. Let me pull up my notes quick.
Unlike the MLB awards, this does not just have to be a regular season award too, if you don't want it to be. I'll listen to all the
Um,
arguments.
Yeah,
I
I'm
just
gonna
kind of
do a hot hitter
thought of
from our
it.
playoff run. What the fuck are you talking about?
Well, there's a certain young Venezuelan outfielder that really, really left a good impression on my heart after those playoffs. But go ahead.
Yeah, except he's gonna learn how to stretch.
Crazy. So my offensive player of the year, which I kind of said it 2 podcasts ago, just out of the love, I'm gonna switch it. Um, I looked at BWAR, and I know everybody looks at BWAR and kind of shoves it to the side, but our leader in BWAR was Bryce Terang, and it was almost a 6 WAR season, which is quite impressive. And once I dig into just like his where he ranks on this team throughout the year, he led the team in games played, almost played every single game, which is quite impressive for a guy who had a dead arm in April. I think that's pretty sick. He was .001 away from leading the team in OPS, second on the team in walks, first in runs, second in doubles, third in homers, first in steals, and he was the August player of the month. He also led the team in hits. So when Sal Frelick was about to win the goddamn my brain
Batting
is
title.
fried. Yes, batting title. Um, he ended up tying Sal Frelick for the highest average on the team at 288. So Sal kind of died off at the end, but Bryce, we talked so many times in the last 2 years about, oh, he has a great March, end of March, April, half of May, and then takes an absolute nosedive. And it was the complete opposite. I mean, he was hot and then he got a little cold. Well, guess what? Then he got even hotter and hit 10 home runs in August to hit almost 18 or hit almost 20 homers when he had 18. Um, so and he had a huge homer as an insurance run in that NLDS game 5 against the Cubs. So, and he might not have played the greatest defense, but this is technically my hitter of the year. And he wasn't like unplayable on the infield. That's for damn sure.
Go.
I gotta give it to Christian Yelich. I know I mentioned Churio was a stud in the playoffs. He almost stole it from Yelich, and don't get me wrong, it really sucks that Yelich still does not have a postseason RBI since 2018. But I mean, a guy who we thought was down for the count for what, 2.5 years, to come back and hit, I think 32 homers, and or sorry, 29 homers and 102 RBI was the final count, I believe. Um, can't say enough about how important that was
103
for this
RBI.
team. There you go.
Also had
Oh,
one more point of OPS than Bryce Terang, so I guess he was just a hotter hitter.
can't argue how important that was for this team to be the best record in baseball in the regular season, with a guy making that much money and not really providing anything defensively. There were some question marks for a couple years there. Obviously, he bounced back, had an all-star appearance, but coming off back surgery again, came out and really swung it well. Had a couple big hits. Walk-off grand slam was one of the highlights of the season. Got to give it to my boy Yelly.
And then as the numbers guy, have to give it to the highest OPS. So Tyler Black. No, I'm just kidding. But he is the highest OPS apparently. But I was kind of unsure bouncing around. You guys covered who probably I'd go to. Um, and you shouted out Churio. Sal Frelick's just so consistent. But I'm gonna give it to Andrew Vaughn because we call it the hot hitter award. And when that dude came on this team, there was no other way to describe him than hot. Not visually, but like his play. He's clearly not the greatest. Well, no, I take that back. Take that back. He's hot. But Andrew Vaughn, yeah. Obviously we granted a birthday wish and in return got Andrew Vaughn. And he stole the job from Reese and never gave it back. Even when he cooled off, he wasn't ice cold. But yeah, he was on an insane run. And I witnessed it was a Cubs game after he'd been around for a bit. Watched him hit a dong. Saw him hit a dong in a Dodgers game, I think. He was very fun to watch. And at the plate, you actually felt very confident in his at-bats for a long time. And again, even when he wasn't hitting great, he still actually was making pretty good contact and stuff. So I don't think you could argue Andrew Vaughn wasn't a hot hitter. In his 64 games, he had 68 hits, 14 doubles, nine home runs for 46 RBI. And his walk to K ratio is pretty close too. Yeah, he hit 308 as Brewer, and his OPS was 869. So that's pretty good.
And he had a huge homer in an LDS game 2 that we were at.
Yeah,
In game 5. In game 5.
Oh yeah, in game 5.
All right. Untouchable pitcher of the year. Don't know that you can really argue who the actual answer is, but I might give some more shout outs. Kean, who was your untouchable pitcher of the year?
You fellas are untouchable. Is that the thing? No one can get to you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I have a different guy written down, but Freddie Peralta is obviously. But I'm gonna give some love to Quinn Priester, for a guy that was acquired midseason and literally had some of Brewers Twitter in a meltdown because we gave up Yafari Rodriguez, who was, a mid-ranked prospect who was a little, young to be at his level, so it looked bad. It doesn't matter. Quinn Priester with sixth in the team in B War again. I don't like the way Fangraphs look, so I use B War. Very easy on the eyes, and that's awesome for being acquired midseason. Having to learn, a new catcher, a new staff, new coaches. For a hitter, I think it would be a little bit easier because you just go out there and hit. But if they want you throwing different pitches, different grips, I think it's a lot more challenging as a pitcher to do it. But he was still second in innings on the team with a 3.32 ERA. And obviously, we heard about how much the Brewers won when he was on the mound. He had a 13-3 record overall, and I believe he won 10 straight decisions. He was second on the team in Ks, and he had 125 ERA plus. Obviously, he had the best stretch of a pitcher throughout the season, even if he wasn't the best. His lows were somewhat low, but his 15 start stretch there was pretty good. And he did. I shouldn't say start because he did come out. It was like as a reliever type thing where he would go 2 through 5.
I will go and maybe I'll let Scoop take the obvious answer. But I'll take a also semi-obvious answer. Just shout out the back of the pen combo we saw throughout the year, which was mostly McGill and then Abner, and I'm mostly giving Abner my untouchable pitcher because he's just so fun to watch and honestly was a weapon. And then you saw in the playoffs that meant that he pitched every game, but um, yeah, he's electric, and the Brewers like that he's controllable for a while still. So shout out Abner Uribe, Trevor McGill, and then I will just very quick shout out Jared Koenig because I think he was like oddly reliable this year, um, and honestly pitched a lot in very important spots. So
Remember
Yeah,
Brian Hudson?
yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah. I'm obviously gonna give my actual award to Freddie. 17-6 record, a 2.70 ERA, made all 33 starts, 176 innings, and 204 strikeouts. So the man was great. But again, to echo that call, if I want to talk about like who would I trust most to go get me 3 outs, it's probably Abner Uribe. What's that? Seven.
7 minutes.
Oh yeah. But Abner Uribe, that's probably my answer right there. So for who I would not want to face if you need 3 outs or who I would want to put out there. So shout
Yeah,
out
I
to
don't think it
Abner. One
matters who you face, buddy.
Yeah, good point. Um, but yeah, Freddie takes that one home. So all right, well we may have mentioned some of them, but who is your unsung hero of
Chad
2020?
Patrick.
Yeah, I also went with Chad Patrick. He was
No, I
seventh in
did.
Rookie of the Year, uh, fourth highest B WAR. Again, B WAR, shoot me. Uh, he was fourth highest for the Brewers pitchers on the year. Obviously, coming out of the pen and starting, impressive. And he was sent down in the middle of the year. Just awesome stuff for him. He had the fourth most innings on the staff, which is probably partially why they sent him down, even though he started all year. The year before in AAA, he had a 117 ERA plus and a 3.53 ERA as a 26-year-old rookie. I thought that was pretty impressive for a guy who was throwing ball D2 uh, not that long ago.
Yeah, I mean Chad. Also, Nick Mears just ate so many innings for most of his appearances at a high level, and then probably just got worn down in reality. And then a semi-obvious answer, I think, if you watched the full season, but Isaac Collins came out of nowhere, did a job at a level I don't think anyone going into the year thought he could do it at, and maybe ran out of a little steam, but yeah, was a dude for a long time and had people begging for him to get playoff at bats, whether he was probably the best person to get those or not. The fan base had a good impression of him after the season.
I gotta say, you kind of stole it earlier, but my unsung hero probably would be Jared Koenig, for obvious reasons. I mean, that
Big dumb
bullpen was,
lefties. Yeah,
yep,
you got it tight, pal.
that uh, that that bullpen was just so good in the regular season. Just looking at the numbers now, basically a full bullpen of guys with under 3.5, most even under 3 ERAs. So Jared Koenig, but I did also want to give a shout out to Andrew Monasterio, a guy who has caught some flack unintentionally, even for me at times when I talk about, weak bench. But he's a guy who, whenever you needed him, he actually stepped up, and including that huge home run in the to push the winning streak to record level. So, 755 OPS. Um, he only played 68 games, but it felt like a guy that you could trust to go up to the plate from time to time.
Yeah,
Was good in his role, so good vibes guy too, for
one
sure.
other guy that I think people look down on, common contributor, Doctor. I won't say his name. I won't dox him. But Jake Bauers hater. But Jake Bauers had a year too. Somehow made it back to the team. I think after most people were sick of watching him spin on a backdoor slider, but made his way back on and had some huge plays for this team. So also got to shout out Jake Bauers.
I think we're gonna save our dive into our off-season predictions for the crew until next episode. Woody will have a decision made, a little more clarity there. So we'll do a deep dive maybe in a couple weeks here. But just before we wrap up, I wanted to give you guys a chance to give any more full season takeaways on top of whatever we talked about, and then ultimately just final thoughts, I guess. I don't have a ton, but just wanted to say that despite how it ended, it was a great regular season. So many fun things, and we got a bye. We won a playoff series. We won a playoff series against a guy that we don't like as a fan base in Craig Council, our rivals, and unfortunately, we just ran into a juggernaut. And someday we got to beat those teams, but for a team that wasn't anticipated to do too much this year, it was a really fun year, and you feel a lot better about this year than you did the last 2 years. So.
Yeah, I think for the future we're in a good spot, and obviously it was a fun ride. And I don't think I have a great overall picture to paint that a Brewers fan that watched all year wouldn't agree with. Um, but final thought, really quick, before we hand it off to Kian. The Ricky Weeks move to the front office is interesting, but I guess just with the family and stuff, maybe he can be with his family a little more. It is interesting they're not replacing the bench coach I saw. I didn't know that was even like an option
Well,
to
he's
not
an
have one.
associate. He's an associate. They're not replacing the associate manager.
Okay,
I don't know
yeah.
if they'll. Yeah, but
But
yeah.
interesting. Again, I was thinking about it. I don't know how important that job actually is. Like, I'm sure they do stuff, but also like I'd rather keep Hook. But um, and I'll toss it off to Kian. Can't remember what else I was gonna say.
Yeah, I would just say it seems there's something about the Brewers players in that third season up in the big leagues. And you know who's coming up on a third season in 2026? Jackson Churio. As long as he can get that hammy healthy, I think that he'll have like a breakout year, just as Sal Frelick did, just as Bryce Terang did, and that other group. We're only missing Joey Weimer, but you can't get them all right. So it was a good year for those guys, but I did mention that earlier in the year that third year jump seems to be when the Brewers hitters take off. So I'm interested to see how that goes. Obviously, that probably means regression for Isaac Collins and our boys. I don't know if Joey Ortiz can even regress anymore. He's pretty fucking bad at the game of baseball this year. Hopefully, he gets some glasses or some Max Muncy treatment, and he'll come back. But other than that, oh, and Caleb Durbin. But you know, we'll see how it goes. It was a good year. I had fun. Some of my favorite memories as a Brewer fan came this year. I think this team in particular got a lot of casual fans back on board. Maybe that's just my friends, but it was a lot
Yeah,
more fun watching games with them when they were like, hey, I was watching the other night and Andrew Monasterio hit a huge homer. It's just like, damn, you have never watched the Brewers before. So I thought that was kind of cool.
yep, yeah. Rejuvenated a little bit of playoff heartbreak of recent years. So good stuff for sure. Uh, Thanks for listening.
Go
Happy
Brewers.
Thanksgiving.
Go Brewers.
Gobble gobble gobble.
These nuts.